Disney parks are still the undisputed leader in themed entertainment. It's not even close, and I can prove it. That's globally and in North America. That's industry-wide and on a park-by-park basis. And the data in question is probably the most important measurable of all, and that's in actual attendance. Let's take a look. The Themed Entertainment Association has released their latest Global Attractions Index report, and the results tell a story of virtual dominance by the Disney company in theme park experiences. A surprise to some, perhaps, who thought the Disney company was fading away. They are not. Now, let's first talk about what this is and what it means. The T report is it's a yearly thing. I call it the T. I'm not even sure if that's what it's actually called. I call it the T report, and it's something that we've been tracking now for a couple of years as I look at these numbers, which again, I just absolutely love looking at this kind of stuff. But they track global attendance at theme parks across the world, both locally here in North America and internationally. And really, it's the best possible way. It's the best look we get at attendance because Disney or other theme parks don't publish their attendance numbers. That's nothing that they do on their own. They'll publish their performance in terms of Wall Street, in terms of their annual reports, but you never get an actual look at the attendance. This is great. These reports are very useful that tell us exactly how many, they tell us how many people are going to every single prominent theme park around the world. The only negative is that we have to wait kind of a year or so to get those numbers. For example, this report that we're looking at just came out in this October, right? But it's for 2024. So we had to wait 10 months into this year, into 2025, to get this report. And it's the same thing every single year. So it's not, so what we're looking at, just, to put that up front, what we're looking at is 2024. However, I should say that while you might want to say, well, that doesn't really tell the whole story, there were signs that people were saying back in 2020, last year, when this report came out, they're like, look at this, Disney compared to Universal, what's happening? There's something to be learned here in that conversation. That's sort of the gist of what we're talking about here, because there's this idea that Disney's losing its market share, and it's because Universal is coming up and grabbing market share. Check this out. This first list is the top 10 amusement or theme park operators worldwide. So this is not individual parks, but companies that make parks. Number 1 is Disney Experiences. And just look at those numbers down there for 2024. That's 145 million. I think that's right. Actually, check that back. 145 million. That's 2024. 145,196,000 guests across all Disney parks. Compare that to, I don't even know who Fanta World is, to be honest, or Merlin Entertainments. I looked it up, and I don't recognize any of those parks, but apparently they're kicking butt. They're number 2 and 3. But number 4 is Universal Destinations and Experiences at 58 million, almost 59. So Disney parks are nearly tripling. It's about 2.5 times. It's more than double, but less than triple of Universal theme park experiences. Six Flags, oh my gosh, that is definitely triple. Six Flags, and that actually does not include at this point the merging of Knott's Berry Farm and or Cedar Point and Six Flags, right? So that number could change, but Cedar Point they don't even show up on this list, to be honest. There's not enough parks, I guess. But the biggest tell from this report isn't so much the actual numbers, but just the clear disparity between even just number 1 and number 2. That's 60 million. That's the entire yearly population of number 3. So Disney leads Fanta Wild Group by about 58 million. Number 4 on that list, that's exactly how many guests they get per year. So there's a very clear disparity between those two. And this is not a new development. This is not something, if you look back at the 2023 report, which I actually have, in 2023, we had a very similar separation. 142 million for Disney, And then Universal, again, this list is about the same in terms of the rankings. It's about the same as the year before. Universal was at 60. You might notice something with that 60 figure. So that was a pretty typical separation between those two. But you may have said, hey, that sounds funny because he said 59 million, 58 million. Oh my God. So 0.7%. Universal shrunk by 0.7% last year. Their numbers, their attendance, their total attendance went down. Disney went up 1.2% from 143 to 145 million. But Universal went down from 59.4 million to 58.9 million. And they are, if I'm not mistaken, yes, they are the only chain of parks that had a drop off. There are some that are doing quite well that have been coming up. Fanta Wild is up 1.7%. Check out the Overseas Chinese Town group, up 15%. I looked that one up and I don't recognize any of those parks either. I'm so Disney focused that but there are some parks that are doing quite well. And then the Haicheng Ocean Park Holdings, that's also, so these are all Chinese or Japanese type operations, I would assume. Well, obviously number 6 is, but very popular themed entertainment overseas in Asia, very popular. Overall, another lesson that we can learn from this report is that globally, themed entertainment is up 3.3% overall, which is fantastic. That's 532 million people are going to theme parks in 2024. Now, this, if you look at the 23 report, you can't even compare. This is the first really good year over year we've had post-COVID. The report before this, there was huge numbers. If I look back at the 23 report, there was a 30% increase. Disney parks were up 17. That same Fanta Wild group was up 111%. Everybody was up big numbers because they were coming off of 2022 numbers where, COVID was an issue. But this is the first good look we've had at full-time operations, no limitations or anything like that, and themed entertainment is up 3.3% this year, or I should say in 2024. Let's take a look next at individual theme parks. Who are the most popular theme parks in the world, individually speaking? And this year, as just like every other year, for probably as long as they've been doing this report, Magic Kingdom at Walt Disney World in Florida is the number one theme park at 17.8 million guests for 2024. Now, the separation isn't quite as dramatic, and that's because Disney has, they have, Magic Kingdom, Disneyland, Tokyo Disney, Shanghai Disney, Tokyo Disney Sea, Epcot, Disney's Hollywood Studios. 8 of the 10 most popular parks in the world are Disney owned. So, though that's individually one park against the other isn't quite as dramatic, they add up to a very dramatic separation between Disney and other theme parks. The first Universal park to show up on this list is number 12, Universal Studios Beijing. Then you have Universal Studios Florida at number 13, and then Islands of Adventure, Florida, also at number 14. Disney parks, or I should say, the Magic Kingdom was up 0.7% last year. Disneyland was up 0.5% last year. Look at how close they are. It used to be, if I recall, that there was more of a separation between Magic Kingdom and Disneyland. Disneyland is just holding on strong as the number 2 park. And then who are the big leaders? Tokyo Disney Sea is up 2.9%. Shanghai is the second highest increase. Shanghai. Disneyland's up 5%. They went from 14 million to 14.7 million. That's a lot of guests, by the way, because I know that Disneyland is just dense, very packed. Magic Kingdom is a little bit more spread out, and but they are getting about the same amount. Imagine fitting nearly the same amount of guests that you get at Magic Kingdom in a park that is much more compressed, Disneyland, and then take that to Shanghai. Shanghai is even bigger. If I understand correctly, it's even more roomy than those other parks. That just goes to show you how intimate and tightly packed everything is at Disneyland. You feel the bodies, you feel the busyness, you feel the crowds more at Disneyland than you do at any other theme park. And by the way, that's a good thing in my opinion. I enjoy that. So again, let's take a look at Universal Studios Beijing, Universal Studios Florida at Orlando, and Universal Islands of Adventure. The narrative that we heard, and this is not the narrative in 2025, this is a narrative that was going on in 2024 as well, was that Universal was taking market share from Disney. Disney was losing market share to Universal. Now, Epic Universe was not, they were still building it, so it's not on this list, which is going to be important to note in just a minute. But look at Universal Florida is down 2.6%, and Universal Islands of Adventure is down 5.5%. 5.5%. So where Disney is maintaining their attendance levels or even increasing them just a little bit, Universal has been losing guests, or were losing guests in 2024. That's an interesting thing to talk about. And while the reason why I brought up Epic is because one could argue that, people are going to Epic instead of those parks, but it's not built yet. It hasn't been built yet when this report was final, where these dates are final, where these numbers are final. This is for the end of the year, the year 2024. Epic opened in May of 25. What can we learn from that? Well, you could maybe say the argument that people are holding back. They're choosing not to go to Universal. They're waiting to go to Universal Parks in Florida before, so that they're going to save that trip until Epic opens. That's a fairly good argument. I could even listen to that. I would entertain that. But one thing you'll notice is that Universal Hollywood is not even on the top 15. It was the year prior. I have that. In 2023, Universal Studios Hollywood was number 14. It got knocked off the list. It's not even in the top 15 anymore. Now, it was showing an increase of 15% last year, with attendance right around 9.6 million per year. Not great. Not great, but still top 15. Trailing all manner of parks. They're, even trailing California Adventure and Hollywood Studios in Florida. I mention those because those are like the least popular North American parks. I would say the reason why I'm pointing that out is because you can't make that same argument, right? For Universal Studios Hollywood, we don't have an Epic Universe to wait for. So people are just choosing not to go. They're choosing less often to go to Universal, or they were in 2024. Looking at this chart, I said that Universal was at 9.7 million guests. Universal Studios Hollywood, 9.6 million guests in 2024. If we go back to the 25, the bottom is, did they really drop under 9 million? The bottom, Animal Kingdom, is number 15 here on this list at 8.8 million guests per year. So Universal Hollywood from 9.6 million down to what? Down to 8.7 or something? That's pretty sharp. My brain says that's almost 10%. I'm just trying to do the math in my head, and it's in that 10% number. That's interesting. That is very, very interesting, I think. Very telling for those of you who are trying to have that conversation. Now, again, for those arguments, people comparing Epic Universe or Universal to Disney, we don't have the luxury of seeing Epic Universe here. I would be very curious to see if those percentages, or I should say the actual attendance numbers cumulative, if they go up. If we just assume, let's just say it's 8.5 million for Universal Hollywood, and then Universal Islands is 9.4, so we're at 17.9. And then Universal Orlando, 9.5, so that's 26. We'll call it 27 million, give or take, 27 million between those three parks. If we just take those three, the real thing that we're going to look at in a year from now, when that 25 report comes out, the 2025 report, which again, we're going to have to wait a year for this, will it still be 27 million, or will that number go up? And what we're looking at there is, did Universal increase their attendance by adding a third park? right? That 27 million has to go up. It has to. It absolutely has to. Otherwise, this is going to be, it's going to be, well, anyway. Okay, so what I'm saying is, the argument was Universal was going to pull market share, that Epic Universe was going to pull market share from Walt Disney World. Meanwhile, Walt Disney World management is saying, nah, I don't think so. I don't think we're going to lose anything. I think we're going to be fine. I think a rising tide raises all boats. And I think they're right. But we can't tell that from here. But what they're saying is it's, parks doing well, any park doing well is good for the overall theme park universe. My theory was that, no, I don't believe that Epic Universe is going to be pulling guests from Walt Disney World. If anything, Epic Universe they're going to cannibalize their own market share. So instead of that 27 million becoming 32 million or something like that, it's going to stay at 27 million. But there's going to be guests at Epic Universe, but they're going to be that is going to go up. It's going to be at the cost of those guests choosing not to go to Universal Orlando or Islands of Adventure. Let's just say, for example, and I've done this twice myself in 2025. Twice myself when I went to Epic Universe, I didn't go. Right, I should say I didn't spend all my time at Universal. I still made trips to Magic Kingdom to Walt Disney World. 2 days at Universal, 2 days at, I usually do 4 days in the parks. 2 days at Universal, 2 days at Walt Disney World. And then, interestingly, my last few trips, no days at Universal and all 4 days at Walt Disney World. I am not the person you should be basing this on, but I'm just saying what my experience is. What I'm thinking is that people are still going to spend 1 or 2 days and they're going to choose to go to Epic Universe instead of going to Universal Orlando, or instead of, they might still spend 2 days. They might have spent a day at Universal Orlando and a day at Islands of Adventure. Now they're going to spend a day at Epic and a day at one of Orlando or Islands of Adventure, and then still have a couple more days at the Walt Disney World parks for those guests who were typically going to both. That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that this is going to do more to cannibalize Epic Universe than their own theme park attendance, as opposed to just stacking it on top. I don't think, TLDR, I think that 9.5 million for Universal Orlando and Islands of Adventure is going to drop to 8.8, or something like that. And that's what's going to be the foundation for the Epic Universe attendance. Now, those rankings are global. That includes, international parks. We have a list for just North American parks, which the top is still going to look the same. Magic Kingdom, Disneyland are number 1 and 2. And now this is where you start seeing the dominance of Disney parks. Number 3 is Epcot. Number 4 is Hollywood Studios. Number 5 is DCA. DCA is number 5 in the entire U.S. I would not have predicted that. And now you get your first Universal. Universal Florida, Orlando is number 6. Islands of Adventure number 7. And then the only parks they're beating are Animal Kingdom and Universal just Animal Kingdom. Is that right? Am I looking? Universal's Hollywood Studios beats it. Oh, man. Well, I guess that makes sense. That's a much bigger park. Animal Kingdom just needs more to do. Animal Kingdom. Wait till we see what happens in the 2026 report. Animal Kingdom needs more to do. Okay, moving down the list. Animal Kingdom 8. Universal Studios Hollywood 9. And I called it. What I said in my head, I'm like, that sounds like a 10% drop off. And there it is. 10%. From 9.6 to 8.7. What happened to Universal Studios Hollywood? What's happening? Nobody's talking about that. You don't hear that. You don't hear from the Universal guys on social media. Now Hollywood is about to have a bump up, I think. They've got big plans for Universal Studios Hollywood. I just hope it's the money's going in the right direction. Because they're going to be putting a lot of money into Universal Studios Hollywood over the next few years, and you're barely going to recognize that park compared to what it is today. 10% drop off. Guys, that's not insignificant. That would make me very nervous. Universal has been on such an aggressive expansion plan. And that's all parks. That's Orlando, Islands. That's in here in Hollywood as well. And then obviously Epic Universe. They've got, like I said, big plans for Hollywood. That's really concerning. A 10% is a significant telling number. Normally those numbers are in the plus minus 2%, right? Disney's up points, Magic Kingdom is up 0.7, Disneyland 0.5, Epcot 1.3. By the way, that 1.3, the reason why Epcot is up 1.3 is because 24 is when they finally finished whatever the hell they were trying to do at Epcot. That's done. That's a park that's more or less, or in 2024 anyway, was more or less at its full capacity. So we're seeing an increase in attendance there. But I would be very alarmed if I were Universal Studios Hollywood. Look at Knott's Berry Farm, number 10. Knott's Berry Farm is up 6.5%. SeaWorld Orlando is going nowhere. SeaWorld San Diego is up 0.8%. That's kind of shocking. These are not very good parks in my opinion. Cedar Point is up at 5%. Six Flags Magic Mountain, 0.5%. It's up. And wow, Dollywood is all the way down to number 18. I thought that was a more popular park. One of these days I want to go there. And then Six Flags Great America, 5% also. But it does, now note this, by the way. Overall, across the North American parks, down 0.3%. From 144, 443 to 144, 1. So they've lost 442,000 guests. You know what's interesting? You could blame all of that, it looks like, right? I think you can blame all of that. 440,000. Oh, no, you can't. A lot of it, anyway, on Universal. Hollywood alone lost... Wait, is that right? Yeah, it is just Hollywood. If Hollywood had broke even... Hollywood lost almost 1 million guests last year. That's the difference between 23 and 24. More than that, actually. If Universal Studios Hollywood had just broken even, this chart would be in the right. I'm not going taking crazy pills. My math is right. 442,000 from 144, 443 down to 144.01. That's 442,000. Right? Universal Hollywood down from 9.6 million to 8.7 million. The difference there is roughly 900,000. Breaking news. Universal Studio Hollywood is killing the North American theme park business. Interesting. And then Islands of Adventure was down 5.5%. Orlando was down 2.6%. Those are down 500,000 guests and 200. So 750 and 700. So you're looking at 2.5 million guests. Orlando has dropped 2.5 million guests in North America. Long story short, I feel like Disney management should feel pretty good about this report for 2020. It's a shame that we can't get this report a little bit more timely, I guess. I would love for this, to get this like in March or April, maybe even. So what's the conversation that we should be having in the comments below? What's the conversation? Do you give any weight to this? Does this report change your attitude about how well Disney's doing or how well Universal is doing, about how the comparison, the competition between the two? Should we not even have this conversation without including Epic Universe? I think there's room for that, and we're gonna have, like I said, we're gonna have to wait a little while for to find out. But that conversation was happening. Universal versus Disney was happening in 2024 all day. I was all over social media in 24 talking about Universal versus... I was making all kinds of trips to Universal at that time. I don't make as many as I used to, but I was really like, man, Universal's coming up. I'm going to get into this Universal thing. And it's interesting that these numbers aren't playing that out. That's the conversation I want to have. Tell me what you think. Does this change your mind at all about Universal versus Disney parks? And I know that the people who watch this show are going to be Disney-centric guests, but I get lots of people who say negative stuff about. There's more than enough to say negative stuff about Disney and how they're going to switch over to Universal or to Knott's Berry Farm. They're not. You're not. Okay, or you did it in 2024. Tell me the truth, man. It's like people who say, Avatar sucks. Nobody wants Avatar. I'm sorry. Number 1 movie all time, number 3 movie all time. Somebody's going to see those movies. Drop us a comment. Thanks for watching, everybody. We love you. Be safe out there. Be kind to one another. Fresh Baked.